Okay, I wanted to make a video that would help you get this business of writing an equation from information in a table. So let's take a look at a problem that we might see here. This one tells you to find an equation for the line that goes through this data. In other words, if I were to graph all these points on a graph, you'd see that it would go, a line would go through all three of them, but I'm supposed to write the equation for that. Well, one option, of course, is to graph the line, but that's not going to be very easy to see. Especially if we get down here to negative 36, we're going to need a pretty big graph. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to remind you that anytime you ask me to find an equation, I can put it into this form right here. Okay? And this number, sometimes we call it m. I don't know why they use m for slope, but they do. That number is always the slope. In other words, the rise over run. Okay? And this number is always the y-intercept. In other words, where it crosses the y-axis. So again, I could graph all these points and look and see where they cross the y-axis. That would give me this number. And then I could count up or down and count to the right and see what the rise and run are and get this number. But I can figure it out from here. Here's what I'm going to point out. If you pick any two pairs of numbers here, like we'll just pick this pair right here. Okay, that's the point 2, 6, or 2, negative 6, and 5, negative 21. Okay? Well, I can write them out this way if I want, and use the skill we found before, where we find the slope by subtracting the y coordinates to get the rise. You might remember, subtract the y's to get the rise, and then subtracting the x coordinates to get the run. So I could write negative 21 minus negative 6, that's the rise, and 5 minus 2 to get the run. You'll notice I subtracted in the same direction. Since I started on the right here and subtracted to the left, then I did the same thing on the right and then the left. I could go the opposite way as well. Okay? So let's calculate this. Negative 21 minus negative 6 is the same thing as negative 21 plus 6. You're going to get negative 15. Okay? On the bottom, you're going to get 5 minus 2 is 3. So negative 15 divided by 3, that's my slope. We'll write it as negative 5. So that's the number that goes right here. So I'm going to write out the equation so far. Okay? I've got y equals negative 5x plus, I don't know what yet, but I do know that it's the slope. Okay? The other thing I know is that this equation, when it's all said and done, has to work. In other words, any number I pick from the x's and put in here, I have to do all my calculations and get the y coordinate. So if I choose 2 to put in for x and do all my calculation, I have to get negative 6. So here I'm going to do that. I'm going to use this one right here. Okay? I'll put in 2 for x and say I don't know what that is right here. But I do know that when I do all this calculation, I have to get to negative 6. Okay? This is negative 10, right? Okay? What do you have to add on to negative 10 to get to negative 6? And if you can count up from negative 10 to negative 6 and say it's got to be 4, that's great. The other option is to add 10 to each side. So you get the box equals 4. Either way you want to think about it, we now know what goes in the box right here. Okay? So that's going to be 4. So here's my final equation. Y equals negative 5x plus 4. Okay? So I'll go back to Delta Math. And scroll down and type in y equals negative 5x plus 4. Okay, got my answer. Okay, so that would work. Let's do a new problem. Okay. Here's a new one. Go back to, I'll just copy the table this time. I put it in the wrong place. put it on this screen here. I'll fix that. Take it, slide it to the next page here somewhere. Okay, so now I've got it on a new page. So, once again, I can look at the rise and run. In fact, I don't even need to write them out. I can say, look, if I subtract a pair here, that's the rise. So 15 minus 0, that would be the rise. And subtract the same direction here. I went 15 minus 0, so I'm going to go 6 minus 1. Okay, so I get 15 over 5, otherwise known as 3. Okay, so I've already got a lot of my equation written down right now, okay, because I calculated the slope, and that's always the number that goes in front of the x. Okay, so now let's keep going here with finding what goes in the box here. Once again, any x I choose over here, I have to get the corresponding y after I get done calculating. So if I put 6 in for x here, and add whatever this is, I have to get to 15. Okay? Or if I put 1 in right here, I have to get to 0. Well, I might as well pick the easiest one I can. So I'm going to use 1. Okay? So when I put 1 in here and calculate away, I have to get 0. So let me figure out what goes in here. Okay? This is 3. What do you have to add to 3 to get 0? Well, that's going to be negative 3. So here's my equation. Y equals 3x, that's the slope right there, minus 3. So if I go back to delta math, y equals 3x minus 3. There's my answer. Okay, let's do one more. We'll go back to here. Pick any pair of points you want. Doesn't matter which pair. I'll go ahead and choose this pair right here. Why not? Okay. The rise is what you get when you subtract the y's. I'm going to go 22 minus 7. So I'll just write that right here. 22 minus 7. And then the run is going to be 8 minus 3. Okay. So I subtracted the y's to get the rise. 22 minus 7, interestingly enough, is 15 again. Okay. 8 minus 3 is 5. So once again, I get a slope of 3. So not very creative on delta math's part, but that's all right. So here's my equation to start with. Y equals 3x plus I don't know what. Okay. But I do know as soon as I pick some number for x and put it in here, I have to get the y that went with it. So I'm going to use this number this time, this pair. I'll choose 8 in for x. Okay. And whatever I add right here has to get me to 22 because that's what I have right here. Okay. So this is 24. What do you add on to 24 to get to 22? Well, it's going to have to be negative 2. So here's my equation. Y equals 3x, 3 is my slope, minus 2, and I'm done. So I'll type that back into delta math. Y equals 3x minus 2. And I'm good to go. Okay, hopefully that helps you.